Hey everybody, and welcome back. Well, as you can see, everything is just as we left it. So we're going to press on with that. We're going to make the silencer. So I'll bring you in closer in a minute to show you what we're planning to do there. Nothing much to say. The only thing of note is that outside it is 34 degrees, white and snowing. So I guess the Jaguar's in its house for the winter because they're very quick to salt the roads in New York State and they put a lot of salt down. So that's done, and probably won't get out to ride much. Well, certainly not at the moment because it's sort of wet snow and it's really slippery out there. Okay, as I say, nope. Nothing else happening, so let me show you what we're going to do to get this silencer made. Right, well, we are going to make the centre part first. So as I've moved it up there, we'll make it longer. Yeah, we can definitely come to there. That's where we'll come to. And as I say, that gives me... There we go. Let's get a measuring stick. That is going to give me, well, 6 inches. No, it's going to be longer than that. Yep, 6 inches. Which is as long as the BSA ones are. So that'll be fine. Excuse my arm. No, that's as far as I can do it safely. Well, maybe go 6.5 inches. Actually, it's taller at the top, isn't it? Because I've made a cut setback. Oh yeah, that'll be... I can about get 7 inches out of it. Okay, so I'll cut that. We'll fold that up and weld it because... Actually, that might be just set in the middle. I might be able to just do that in the middle. Because I was thinking it might be difficult to judge exactly where this hole wanted to be, but... No, I think if I make it in the middle, that'll be fine. So we'll make this piece up first, because you see, what I've got to take into account is, with this slightly squished bit, as I say, it's slightly narrower, but it's taller. So if I cut a round 1.5 inch hole in, I won't be able to get that plate on that way. And don't forget, we've got this piece here, which is why I haven't welded it yet. We wouldn't be able to get it over there. So all I'm going to do is take that off. When I've made this end piece, I'll slide it on that way. Then we'll have this made, and when I'm happy with that, we'll weld it to its end piece, and we can even weld the end piece onto there, hold all that in place while I make that. And then before I'll weld it, I'll weld the end plate to this, but I won't weld it to the pipe, so I can slide it down. And then we can put a couple of blobs of weld on here just to hold it. And then make that up. Like that. Right, so let me undo this, cut some alloy. I thought before I started making the body of the silencer, I should finish this tube off. So what I've done is I've cut 2 slots. You can't even see that one there. I cut 2 slots into it and then worked it from the inside, and with the hammer I nailed it first. Made it back to that, so actually there's a little bit of shade help there, see that? See, 1 slot there, 1 cut there, you can see some hammer marks. So I'll weld that up, smooth it out, and that'll look fine for there. I might drill the holes in it as well. So let me get on doing that. So there's those couple of ripples more or less dealt with. That'll look fine. So there's our piece of alloy marked out, right? And there it is from that. Because what I want to do is have the weld at the bottom. So if you like, as you can see there, those are the 2 sides. This bit is a complete curve for the top, and that are a half a curve, right? And it's going to be round 2 inches. A 2-inch piece we're going to form it. So let's set up for that. Right, so that is laying actually on the vise. I've just put some cloth on so that I don't damage the other side too much. Okay. This has been annealed. So as I say, this is 2-inch. So this is going to be noisy for a little while. So I'll put that on. That's inside the vise. As you saw, I went over a bit more because of the spring back. I'll probably go over a little bit more. That looks pretty good. Now, so there you see is our curve. Can you see that? Yeah. So the next thing to do is to put this here like that. Now you're slightly out of picture, aren't you? Let me move you back. Ready? Hold on to your chair. There you go. You see, I can form that up a bit more around that. Then what we'll do is, using those marks there, the centre line, we'll bend this over, bend that over. When it meets down the centre, we can weld it, and then we can actually do our very final forming when it's welded up. Alright, so let me get this a bit better because you're in the way. Now my 2-inch piece of tube I've marked across the centre line using that, and then I've marked down it. I'm trying to see what you can see with a piece of angle, right? So I've got a line on the centre line both sides. Now we're back in the vise, and here I've transferred those inside lines to the outside. So now what we're going to do is put that in there, and I'll clamp it up and get all of those marked up, and then we can fold that over this. Alright, so let me do that. Right, now I've got all 4 marks lined up. Put this good and tight. Then you know, some of this is more annealed than others. I guess it was warmer just there. Just keep doing that a little bit, get it right in, and then I can weld it up. There's the last stage. I actually put it on a piece of flat inside to fold those over. Then, because as you clamp it up, it goes, the middle's going and it comes out. What I did was I put these on just to hold the two edges together, clamped it up, clamp, clamp, little bit at a time. Now that's folded up and we're right, so I can weld in the centre and then weld the rest of it. Okay. Right, well, so there's that welded up, and I've made this as well, so that's going to go on that end like that. So let me get that tacked on and then we'll go and see how it looks, and then I'll weld it on completely. Oh, and by the way, I've just received the latest creation from Oliver's Haute Couturier Workwear. Do you remember that bit in, what was it? It was actually, the guy who played Hello Hello, and he was in an episode of Are You Being Served, and he came in to buy a Mac. And they gave him the Mac and he put it on, he said, do you mind if I try it in front of the mirror? And he goes in front of the mirror and he goes like that. Turns out he was a photographer and he wanted to take snapshots of people. But anyway, I've put this on because it's a bit chilly, and the heater is up here and I'm welding here, so if I have the heater on it blows the argon away from what I'm welding. So let me get on. Right, well, so there's that welded on there. I've taken the end off that, so that goes on. Come on now, you're 1.5 inches, you should go in there. Oh, look at that. Look at that. When has a hole saw ever cut the hole too small? They're always too big. Hold on. Alright, we'll try again. Or was I, no. Was I trying to put it? No, I wasn't. Come on now. I want you to go in the right way, don't I? Why, that's so bloody tight on that. Anyway. That is going to be about right. That was oh, there's obviously one little fat bit there. Hang on, where's my bit? I'll put this thing back on now so I can get a better fit. About there. So I could have even made this a bit longer, couldn't I? Right, it's not touching anything there. It's not touching anything there. Yeah, I could have made that a bit longer. So I think what we'll do is we'll mark that. The level for the silencer is about like that. don't, yeah, that is a bit low. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's about spot on. Hang on. Yep. Okie doke. So what I'm going to do is tack that to there. I only need to tack it. Tack this here so that I put that exactly where I want it. And I think I'm going to make this in 2 pieces. Top piece and a bottom piece. And I think I'll get that plug out as well, because that should be round like that. Yep, that'll come out as well. Alright, let me get myself sorted here. So there's that welded on there, and I'm going to zoom you out in a minute. Still got space there. Gonna have to cut barely anything out of here for the mud guard. Okay, ready to zoom. There we go. Got that on tight. It's a bigger one. I've got to get a proper clamp to really clamp that up. But as you can see, it's further away from the carburetor than I think the one is on my bike. Yep, that comes out easily. I can get at the oil fill for the gearbox. And that doesn't look too bad. So maybe lifted it up. Well, see, we've got a little bit of flex in that. It's actually when I clamp that up. And we'll come back to what I keep mentioning about having things tight when you're doing your fitment. Putting that on slack, there was a little bit of wobble, so everything was fine. But once I tightened that up and it pulled it exactly straight onto this piece of pipe, it lifted it slightly. But it didn't lift it so much. I could maybe just ease that in the tiniest fraction. But as I say, I've got a good 1/8 of an inch. Almost 3/32 there. I think, oh, hang on a second. Hang on a second. That is a, no, that's a 16th. Hang on. That's a 3/32 welding rod that I have in my hand that you can't see. Take my word for it. Oh, just so it's, yeah. No, wait a minute, I was saying an 1/8. So it's just over 1/16 of an inch. But I can get this over and fraction more. Then I may put the bracket on. I think I might put the bracket on underneath. I actually got this on with the exhaust on, so I don't know that. Remember, that was a worry, so that's not a problem. Certainly when I slack the exhaust off, there's loads of it will come off easily. So all we're going to do now is make our little piece for the front here, which, as I say, I think I'll make it in 2 pieces. Because there's such a small gap from the sides around the top here, it might be difficult to cut a hole and open it out to suit. Whereas if I make a piece here with like a U-shaped end to go in there and then a little U to go on there, it'll all work up nicely. Alright, well, that's a day's work, so I will head out into the snow and I will see you tomorrow. Right, good morning. Okay. I made those little bits, put them in there, and I came out and I was beavering away doing that, and I suddenly thought, oh, I haven't filmed it. But anyway, there it is on there. If any of you're wondering why I haven't cut that off there, it's because that's not the clamp I'm going to use. But I know that if I cut that short, then I'm going to need a Jubilee clip that big, and I won't have one. So that's it. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do, let's pull you out a little bit, is make a bracket. I'm going to make the bracket there. Okay, it's going to make it easiest to get this off. Oh, one other thing I thought of last night after you'd gone home. You know, I was looking at how much space I had and everything here. I was forgetting that the wheel was all the way up. In fact, further up than it was going to go. That was the absolute ultimate. So as you can see now, I could have brought this probably another inch out. And, you know, we didn't even have barely 3/32. Where are we? What have we got? What's... Look, I can get that pen through there now. So... that's fine. Right, so I've got to cut a little piece of 1/8. We'll put that on there first. Then we'll make a little bracket and we'll bolt that to that, and then we'll know we're right. Okay? Right, I've got that piece tacked on. It was a bit awkward to get at. It was acting strange. Anyway, let's go there. Now, when I made this piece to go on there, I couldn't get behind to mark it, so I've shown you this before, but I'll show you it again. If you can't get behind to mark, look, there's a vertical line through the centre. That's as close as I could get, but that's a horizontal line. So then what you do is you put that on there, you draw down from that, and you draw across from that, and that's the centre of the hole, okay? So, that is going to go on there like thus. Okay, so let me just bronze that on. Well, I just broke a basic rule of TIG welding there, and I wasn't comfortable. I didn't have my arms supported, so I didn't move at the right speed. Look, but it'll do. It's fine, particularly when I've done the other side. You watch the other side out there, you can't see. It will be perfect. So anyway, there is that all on. Ready for a zoom? Hang on, I'll even move you back. You ready for this? Here we go. There. I don't think that looks too shabby. Right, so now what I'm going to do is cut the piece out of the rear mudguard so I can put that on. So I need a point to measure from. Unfortunately, we've got a hole in this which exactly matches a hole in the mudguard. So if I measure from there to that hole and how far up and above it is, I can measure on the mudguard from the hole in the mudguard and should be able to match it up really well. Okay, so let me do that. Before I forget, I had a query, I think from a viewer in Germany. It looks as if it was written in German, asking me where I got these. A while ago I got them from Mike Comer at the trial shop. They were just a pair he had knocking around, but I'm pretty sure either these or the ones I used on the Triumph, which are very similar, come from Jitsi in the UK. Alright, Jitsi, that's Jitsie. Alright. Right then, I've made my cut. So let's see if it's in the right place. That's looking quite good. And there. So there's another one of those little instances where you're going to have to bear with me while I stick bolts in. Alright, now then, will this one there. Yes, it does. I think what I'm going to do here actually is when I take everything apart is I'm going to bronze a nut onto this bracket. I mean, it goes on reasonably easily, but just makes it even easier still. Right, let me tighten these up, because as I say, surprising how much things move when you tighten them. Inch. Yeah, it feels as if it fitted on the nut right. I'm annoyed about that bronze in there. I mean, it's not bad, but particularly when you're older like me, I'm finding that getting really comfortable having a support for my hand and everything like that makes a big difference to my TIG welding. Okay, we need a fraction taken off. Now things are bolted up. We need a little bit off there, excuse me, a little bit off the back. It's nicely out at the bottom. Yeah, you can see. We need to go. Like that there. And then I'm going to mark this from the back. A little bit there. Alright, I'll go and do that. Well, we've come to another one of those mysterious things. I've put the mudguard on. Oh, here comes the heating. And I can't get the airbox. What the hell is this? I just took it all off to do this, and that's not touching anything. Well, I'm going to do a little job on the airbox. Hang on, I'll show you that. Right now, a couple of people mentioned me having nuts on the inside of the airbox and the danger of them coming loose going through the car. Well, first of all, I was planning to put nylock nuts on. Very often when I'm doing the dry fit, I'll use ordinary nuts because they're just so much easier to get on. Right? The problem with a nylock nut is you get it on, you know, like 2 or 3 threads, and then you're up to the nylon part, and you've got to use spanners. So for things like this where I just want to spin them on my fingers, I would just use an ordinary nut now. So I was going to use nylock nuts, but because it's such a pain getting this on and off, as you noticed, with the nuts on, because I have to take the top off to get at it, I've found I can get the, excuse my head, I can get that in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of, I think, 1/4 inch alloy, a 1/2 inch wide, something like that, mark it, drill it and tap it, and then I'm going to weld it inside there so that there's no nuts in, so everybody be happy. So we'll do that. Right, so that's that welded in there. I don't know if you can see that it's threaded, but so now we're all set. Right, well, found out I didn't have the top on here quite right, so it wasn't going down flat. There's that. Also found the right size hose clamp, Jubilee clip. So they'll both go on like that. Now then, we get to the fiddly bit, so I'll try, but I might have to turn you off here while I do it, because I'm fiddling in, trying to get at this with the wheel in. Come on now. It's gone in the hole. Just check these with the tap again. Because I definitely don't want to force these. Oh, there it goes. As they're screwing into alloy. Steel bolts into an alloy thread, get it crossed, don't force it. Oh, hang on, I'm not going to use those. I'm going to use a hex set because they're a lot easier to get hold of and get started. See, the thing is, these go in an angle, so if I haven't got them exactly right, I might have to open the holes out slightly. That one's gone in fine, the one over on this side. So it could be that it's pulling this slightly out of line. Anyway, I'll get back to that. There's no point having you hanging around for that sort of stuff, is there? Okay. There we go. All set. Doesn't look too shabby, but more importantly, it'll work. Clearances everywhere I need clearances. Very good. Well, that's another day done. Just about. I might try and fit in making this piece, because it's not just a case of making the triangle with curving some edges, but I want it to go under here, the same as I did on the Otter, so that it just slips into there and they tighten and hold it, and then we'll think of something at the front. So I'll give that some thought, and we'll put an hour or two in on Saturday. Alright, last day for this week. So before I get started, we're going to make the pan for the saddle. Dave did my valves yesterday, Steam Shop Dave, and as usual, of course, I just took him a lot to get cleaned up. He doesn't work like that, so the angles are all reground in. He wasn't happy actually with the valves, so he redid the valves on his valve grinding machine. So now I've got a perfect cylinder head. So let me put the bits and pieces on so we know where everything goes. So as I say, next thing we're going to do is make the pan for on here. Now, I haven't quite decided how I'm going to mount it at the front. You remember that took some thinking about on the Otter, and in the end I had a little plate on here with a grommet, and the pan had a pin that went in there. But I am going to do the same thing and mount it behind here, so that it bolts up. Now on the Otter I did it because I had that pin where the slots were vertical, so it went down behind that. This is a slightly different shape at the back here. I think it might be easier to make it slot on that way. So instead of dropping it on at the back, we'd sort of pull it on there and drop it flat. I haven't decided yet. So anyway, what I've done is measured the front there. I've got a big piece of cardboard. So there's the centre line, because we're going to be having to do some sort of wings on it. this there is how wide I'm going to make it at the front. So the next thing I want to know is this curve here. So for that, we're going to use my daughter Vicky's wonderful present. So let's find the middle, and then I'll find the middle there. Hold on. Right, so we'll find the middle a good old-fashioned way with these. So this mudguard, because the beauty of doing it this way is you start off rough and you finish up exact. This is about 6 inches, so I've set these to about 3 inches, right? So you put that on the edge, make ourselves a line there, and then we do exactly the same here. And I mean, if we were wonderful, the lines would be the same. So you've got to make sure you're not too far out with this. So you make your 2 lines and you find there's a little gap in the middle, and that's the centre. So I've done that. Where's my pen? The light's shining on it, I can't see the scratches. We get behind the light. There we go. So that is the centre there. Okay. This is 10 inches long. Let's do it the other way around. Let me just move them the other way so I can set this at 5 inches. So there it is, and I'll sort of have to extrapolate it a little bit from that. So let me go and mark that on my cardboard. Almost forgot, there was one measurement I'd made earlier. Put that across there and I'd measured from there to the front. So now I've got not only this mark, but I know where that wants to be on my cardboard to centre that curve. Right, so that I think, can't really see, can you? It's how it's going to go. Let me show you it that way. How's that? That's better. So we've got the cutout for here. Then this inner line is the edge of that. So then we're going to fold it over 3/4 of an inch. I have to do a little jiggle there. Then when it gets to the back here, it's going to be 1 inch, so that I can put slots in one way or the other to drop it down there. So let me cut this out and see if I got what I need, or if I've got a piece of scrap cardboard. Well, once again I say that isn't too shabby. That's a really close fit. Okay, so as I say, these lines here, we're going to fold that over. Now I'm going to have to put a little cut in there, because obviously that won't fold the same. So I think that should have been 1 inch up to there, but when we do lay this on the alloy, we'll make some notes on here, say to, little arrow, put extra on there. So that's not looking bad. So let me snip that both sides, and then I can fold it on this line and see what it's like. All right, so I've folded the edges over. That's looking pretty good. It even fits in there. I don't have to worry about cutting notches out or anything like that. So I still can't decide whether to drop down onto these bolts or to go that way onto these bolts. So what I'm going to do, that needs to be cut off, I'll mark it in a minute, is I'm just going to do this side. I'm going to do a vertical slot. Don't like it, we'll make a horizontal slot on the other side, and then whichever one is better, when we lay this template on the alloy, we'll use that. Okay? I was wondering whether I should come lower down. That's my phone. To cover that, but I don't think so. Again, it's another one of those things that looking at it from the side, it's very noticeable, but when this thing stood on the floor and your head's up here, you won't notice it. And that's got a couple of slots in it so I could make the curve in that. When they're welded up and everything's sorted nicely, it'll look fine. Alright, so let me cut this notch out. Well, I did all this bit really nice and I made a complete pig's ear of this look. I was miles out with my original thing. That's got to go there. Let me tape a piece in here. See, that seems about right. I'm thinking vertical's the best way to go. Actually, so let me patch this up and try again. Right, that works. This needs to be maybe 1.25 inches. So I'll also sort of curve it a little bit so that it looks nice. And that's got to go in a little bit there. So let me mark the other side and cut this, hopefully identical to that. I'll use these measurements. And then we'll see for instance at the front here, this actually wants to be longer. It's because it was straight and when you cut it, it came at an angle. So that wants to be longer so I can make it, I don't want it to slot back like that. We'll tape some little bits on, get our curves right and everything so that when we transfer this to the alloy, it's spot on. So I've just added a little bit there. Both sides so that I know. Cut the slot on the other side so it's all down nice and flat. Make this as it is. As I say, let's put a little show me where I want to be there. Be a little inside there. And from there, right, let me go and cut that out for some alloy. Cut it out, try it flat first. Then we'll make our little slots and other stuff. We'll probably curve all this here as well, so I might make it a little bit longer just so I can see what I'm doing. Right, let's go and do that. So there's the first cut. Got my little slots in so that goes onto there, fits up there. So the next thing to do is to bend these two sides and then we'll see what's happening next. So before I bend them, I'm going to anneal them, so it's just about lunchtime. I'll heat it up now and then when I come back we can do the bends. Right, now because of these end pieces, I can't just put this in the brake, and actually it wouldn't work anyway, to fold this up. So what we're going to do is the good old-fashioned method. We're going to put that on there, on the edge of the bench, clamp it up and tap it up. And I don't know if you can see, not quite, I've already slipped up once. Cut this out, I forgot I wanted the top round. So anyway, we'll put that right. So let me set this clamping up. So that's clamped up good and tight. I've got a softish hammer, and because this is being annealed, it should bend up quite easily. There you go, look. And there we have it. So I'll finish that off and do the other side. Now then, I folded up both sides. Hopefully this will go on there. There we go. Right, so Still a good fit around there. Now what I've got to do now is bend these two down, and then I'm going to make a couple of little curves to tidy it up. That looks fine. Actually, it looks fractionally wider down there than it does up here. But I'll check all that, and if need be, we'll just file a little edge. And I think that looks quite neat. I have been thinking, I don't want to rabbit on too much, but I have been thinking, let me move you around, about the petrol tank. So I'm going to tell you something now. So we're going to have a little couple of minutes of waffle. I'll try not to keep it too long. I've been looking at other pictures of bikes, and the thing I've noticed about the way I build them, and like the other Otters and so on, is that I go with a modern concept of keeping the weight low. Low footrests, low seat height. More a question of technique than ground clearance, if you like. I'll give you an example. When I'm on this, I've got about 8 inches of ground clearance. If I come up to a 12-inch log and just try and ride over it, I get stuck in the middle. If I come up to it and I use a little bit of technique, I squat, sit back slightly, lighten the front end, little blip of throttle, front end comes up, the front wheel goes over the log fine. Then I unweight the rear suspension and the whole bike will lift. And it'll lift so much so that now I've got maybe 13 inches of ground clearance. The back tyre touches, over I go. So I can do logs and things that I don't have the clearance to ride over, which used to be sort of an older technique. So consequently, this tube is lower. Everything at the top is lower. So that's why you remember with the Otter, I got to 113 here, I think it was, instead of 103. It's because you look at those bikes, this tube is up here, so the engine can be higher, and the seat is up here as well, which I don't want. Okay, so the reason I'm going through all this is because on this particular bike with the carb and that, well, that's why with the Otter the tank came along and then dipped down. So I'm going to have to do something similar here, because I hate tanks that are like there. Gap here, gap up there. So the whole thing is going to be in there. So what I'm half thinking of doing is the tunnel part will only come to about here. And then this curvy part is more or less going to be empty, just to go around the carb. That way I can keep it as slim as I want. Alright, so that's my thinking in advance of when we get to doing the tank. So let me bend these over and see if these will fit. Alright, here we go. Ow! Just dropped something on my foot. So there it is. Still needs a little. So that gets the upholstered piece put on the top of it. And there we go. Hang on a second. There we go, starting to look something like. Alright, next week I guess it's skid plate, prop stand. Oh, I don't know if did I show you this? Hold on a second. Rather than make one, I asked Mike what he had in the way of prop stands. That one might work. There's also a head steady that goes here, actually to the head. A couple of minor things, and then I think we can strip this for paint and build the engine. But until then, you stay safe and enjoy yourselves.